Hey everybody, welcome to our Healing Voices podcast and YouTube channel. I'm Aaron Lehman, and I'm just excited to be here today for interview number 17 with Madalyn Metzger. Those of you who are brand new to the podcast and or YouTube channel, welcome. This Our Healing Voices community, the hope is that it can be a place where we realize and remember just how powerful our voices are and how needed our voices are. I think it probably comes from my upbringing, which was a very come to the table and share your story, share your voice. And I just feel like that was very helpful just in my own life journey. And you know, as I've left the nest over the last 21, 22 years or whatever, it continues to be such a fulfilling aspect of life, is to be able to have conversations with others where there's not this rush. There's this real, let's listen, let's hear what's going on. So again, our voices all matter. So your voice, as you're listening today, you know, may you have courage to continue to find your own voice and write, you know, journal and share your own truth and discover your own truth. And then the other piece is this healing journey. For me, I think that, you know, sometimes on this healing journey, and you know, whatever this means, healing journey, okay? I'll clarify what that means for those of you who are new. For me, what that means is this body, mind, spirit wellness journey is so unique for all of us. And we're all on these unique paths of healing. And whether we're like consciously hitting a yoga studio, consciously having a deep dive conversation with a partner, having a deep dive conversation with a friendship, you know, with a friend, whatever the healing modality is, right? There's so many out there. Just that we're not the only ones doing it, that there are other people that are out there having courageous conversations, doing courageous work to better themselves, to better their relationships, and also to better the world and to take care of this earth. So welcome to our Healing Voices podcast and YouTube channel. Just, yeah, really grateful for you joining us and really excited to be joined by Madalyn Metzger today. Let me read a little bit about Madalyn. We go back to Manchester College days, back before Manchester College became Manchester University. And Madalyn was actually great friends. I found out from my sister you all met in high school. You guys were on like a youth cabinet planning committee or whatever, and she just remembered how you guys connected very, very easily from the get-go. And then she just loved like watching you and being in your life in college too, and how you just were this incredible leader and continue to be. So, and my sister, Madalyn and I connected on Facebook over this last, I don't know, decade or so, and just have, I just continue to be inspired by what you're sharing and just the voice you're sharing with the world. And it's always a good, you know, I always can like be like, all right, let me go over and see what Madalyn's sharing, to be reminded, right? To be reminded of, you know, what's really important. And I just appreciate you for that. Madalyn at present is the Vice President of Marketing of Everence and a member of the Everence Senior Leadership Team. Everence helps individuals, organizations, and congregations integrate finances with faith through a national team of professionals. Madalyn is responsible for the strategic and operational vision of the organization's marketing efforts across the United States. She leads a national team responsible for creative marketing, branding, digital, media relations, and communications. Madalyn actually began her career at Everence in 2005 and held a variety of marketing-related positions before moving into this chief leadership role in 2016. And Madalyn, prior to joining Everence, you were working in fundraising communication for Church World Service, an international humanitarian organization providing sustainable self-help, development, disaster relief, and refugee assistance around the world. And yeah, you know, as I was reading your bio, just very inspired at the work you're doing right now and at the work you've been about in your life up till now.
Well, thanks.
Yeah. So Madalyn, let's pass the mic to you. And if you will, if you'll share just a little bit about how are you who you are right now? You are in a powerful role, professionally, and just continue to inspire me on the regular. So were there some big moments, like ways in which your mindset was formed growing up, or, over this last 40-ish years? Yeah. How are you who you are now?
40-ish. Yeah.
40-ish, right?
We'll just leave it at that. 40-ish. Well, that's a really good question. In general, I've never been the type to set like this life plan or a life goal for myself. I've always been more of the type of person that's like, oh, that's interesting. Let me learn more about that. Or I want to try that. That looks like that could be really fun, or empowering or interesting. So it's not like, I went through life thinking, oh, by the time I'm 40, I'm going to be in an executive level job or anything like that.
Yeah.
But I also think that a lot of my worldview has been shaped by my family growing up. So my dad is white, farm kid from Indiana, grew up as part of the Anabaptist Church of the Brethren faith denomination, which Aaron, you and I also grew up in that faith tradition. Mm-hmm. And he comes from a family that is committed to peace and justice, and my mom is actually from Vietnam. So my parents met when my dad, who was a conscientious objector because he's a pacifist, was actually doing volunteer work in Vietnam rather than serving in the military. So he was in central Vietnam helping farmers dig irrigation systems and working with the local community like that. And my mom was a teacher in the same town, and they met, and the rest was history. So I feel like between my parents, my grandparents, my aunts and uncles, I think I was raised to understand that I'm a citizen of the world, and that we're all in this together. It's not every person for himself or herself. It's all of us. So I think that that's been formative for me, growing up and now in my adult years.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah. Coming from that sort of a family reality, I had no idea. Okay.
Yeah.
You were taking me back to, the song, the Ted Studebaker song
my dad was actually friends with Ted Studebaker.
You kidding?
Yeah. Yeah. So Ted and my dad were at Manchester together,
okay.
Both peace studies majors.
Yeah.
I think Ted was a year behind my dad in school. Yeah. And then they both ended up in Brethren volunteer service, and both serving in Vietnam. We could get into you could have a whole other podcast about my dad and Ted's experiences in Vietnam, but yeah, they were friends.
Okay.
They were both in Vietnam together in different villages, but at the same time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So this idea of being a citizen of the world, and that it's not this like race to the top or this race to get somewhere, but it's like, how can we live peacefully?
Yeah.
Like you said, peace and justice were something you were really raised in. Say more about that. What, you said the church world service reality. I saw On Earth Peace, you've worked with On Earth Peace a little bit in the past. I don't know if present.
Not present, but yeah. I was on their board of directors for 9 years. Yeah. Served as their board chair for 5 of those 9 years.
Okay.
Actually, one summer in college, I worked for On Earth Peace. I was a conflict resolution specialist for them one summer. So, okay. Yeah.
Wow. So it almost felt like that whole world of just, building. Honestly, it sounds like a building bridges sort of energy of like that's been something you've been passionate about, working for solutions, working for peace and justice and equity.
Yeah, well, I think that's part of the reason why I was drawn to my major in college, which was communications. with an emphasis in interpersonal and organizational communications. So while I wasn't necessarily, like a political science major or a sociology or psychology major, but I was attracted to the study of communications and how we relate to each other, and how we communicate through both word and other means, other messaging to each other, and how that sometimes breaks down.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm sure in your work you've seen the successes when things are flowing well and communication's on point, and then the challenges that also surface, I'm sure.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Yeah. So yeah, what's I'm thinking back. So as you're sharing, like, tell me a little bit more about what was that? What was that like? I mean, you're from Northern Indiana? No, Illinois.
No, Illinois. I grew up in Central Illinois. So I was born in Indiana, but then my family moved to Illinois. So I was raised in the Springfield, Illinois area, but Northern Indiana always felt like another home because that's where my grandparents were at, and so I spent a lot of time in Northern Indiana, and I live in Northern Indiana now.
Okay. Yeah. Was the school world easy? Did it come easy for you? Was it was it something you enjoyed? Like the fact that you and Ange were in this national youth cabinet or whatever. Like I'm imagining it was, you enjoyed it for the most part, but maybe not. I don't know. Curious.
Oh yeah, I mean, I would say I enjoyed school. I wasn't. I was a B student. It's not like I was. I was not in the running to be valedictorian, that's for sure.
Yeah.
But I appreciated school. I enjoyed it. I both the learning but also the friendships, the relationships. But I wouldn't. I mean, yeah, that was really nondescript. But I mean, it is what it is.
Yeah.
So as far as the friendships and the learning. I enjoyed that and appreciated that. Up until partway through my third grade year, I was in a very diverse school system in Springfield, and then we moved to a town just outside of Springfield, and I was suddenly in a very homogenous school district, and so I think that I kind of felt out of place many times without fully realizing that that's how I was feeling or why. But I had a good group of friends, and never felt unwanted necessarily. So yeah, things that I'm still unpacking as an adult, I guess.
Yeah. Oh, we really are. I think just forever, right? We're always unpacking. Going back, I'm always curious, like, whether school is enjoyable, because I loved it. I don't think I was necessarily. I think it was a lot of ego, a lot of anxiety, a lot of it was all about achieving, and and I think I got lost in that a bit too much. But then when I talked to my wife, and she's like, did not enjoy school. The public school setting just didn't vibe with her personality and how she learns, and I think that, so I'm always curious to know, like, whether that's I think having Sarah in my life always makes me curious to know what other people's school journeys were like.
Yeah. I was a pretty shy kid. So, especially early school, even like preschool, I don't know if I would want to repeat a bunch of that, but music helped bring me out of my shell. So I started piano when I was 5, and I started flute when I was in 4th grade, and that really helped bring me out of my shell and gave me a community. So there are elements of my school experience I wouldn't want to live over, but I didn't hate it.
Yeah. Totally. You played flute?
I did.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, that was my minor in college, actually, was flute performance.
Okay. Yeah, Ange had mentioned that when I talked to her here in the last day. She's like, she was very talented musically. Speaking of I just have to throw this out. Lizzo, the artist, the
Yeah.
pop artist, Lizzo plays flute, and I did not know this. But
Oh, I don't think I knew that either.
yeah, Lizzo did an interview on David Letterman's Netflix show.
Uh-huh.
It's a very beautiful interview. Like, yeah, Sarah and I may have cried, and but it was really, yeah, just a powerful,
Oh, I'm gonna have to watch
powerful interview. And she's all about her flute, and it was.
it.
So I would imagine you'll just be like, oh, this is cool. So speaking of flute and music, yeah, how did being involved in music, are you still playing? Are you?
Well, I kind of stopped playing piano for the most part once I got to college. I wanted to focus on flute and singing.
Okay.
And then after college, I took a bit of a break, probably about a 10-year break from playing flute, except for like at church and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a break that I didn't necessarily intend for it to be that long, but my husband is a professional musician, and I felt like I was still being musical, or at least involved in music through him.
Mm-hmm.
And so then I decided, no, I wanted to get back into playing for real. And so I joined a local chamber orchestra, and that was a lot of fun. It was also very humbling because I was really, really rusty after 10 years. And I was playing in that group until a little over 2 years ago. Maybe now it's been more like 3 years ago, when I decided to pursue my master's degree. And I knew I needed to carve out time to focus on my graduate studies. So I set that aside. It was supposed to be temporarily, as well as singing. I sang in my church choir. That was just supposed to be for a couple of years. And then 2 months before I finished with my master's degree, the pandemic hit. So yeah, so music has still been on hold. So
gotcha. So
we'll have to wait and see.
Yes. Gotcha. What an interesting time to be alive. How has that shifted your world? What's your, how have you been staying healthy and sane?
I'm not sure I have been. I'm just going to be honest. I'm not sure I have been.
Right.
I think that there are parts of me, the introverted parts of me were already prepared for this, right? Like, right. I'm okay staying at home and watching a movie in my comfy PJs, or snuggling up with a warm cup of coffee and a book. Yeah. But the extroverted side of me, the relational side of me, has really been suffering. I think I've been coming into the office. I'm still seeing people on the daily, but it's not the same as just, hanging out on the deck with a friend and just, catching up and, or having a drink with someone after work. It's not the same type of connection, and that's been hard for me. That, and just the general anxiety. I mean, this is a really difficult time for everyone. The pandemic has been impacting all of us in different ways. It's just trying to navigate all of those feelings, all of those decisions. It's hard. It's really hard. So yeah, I'll be honest. It's not easy.
Yeah. So the introverted part of you has it's like, oh, okay, a little coffee time, coffee. Yeah. You've enjoyed that aspect, but the community piece, is super important to you. Just has been lacking, has been super different.
Yeah.
Have you been doing Zoom calls or FaceTime calls and seeing people, or?
I've done, yes, but honestly, especially now, because we're doing it more for work meetings too, because we're not having work meetings in person. And most days I get home and I don't want to get on my computer. Yeah. I just don't. Yeah. Even though I know that connection is something that I need. And so trying to find that balance between what I know I need and what I have the energy for, that's been a challenge, but just trying to navigate it.
Yeah, I think all of our screen time has been up just about 64%.
Yes. I mean, Zoom fatigue is real. It's real.
Yeah.
It's hard.
Yeah. It's such a different world. And to not have those, like, to go home and hang out with somebody on the deck. I mean, that's just
Yeah.
a different world. It's like, no, I don't really want to get on my phone again. I
Yeah.
need to shut it down.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. Yeah. So tell me over how do you balance? I guess I'm curious, as a Anabaptist kid, Church of the Brethren raised child. And I don't, I'm not currently attending a church, but that has influenced me tremendously in my life, right? That upbringing. And how do you show up for the world? Like, how do you balance this showing up for the world piece that I know is like in your cells, right? I mean, it's in your cells
Yeah.
from your dad and your mom and what they were about, before they had you, and and then all of your family, right?
Hmm.
How, and church upbringing, et cetera, like, and that call to be of service, to be, a citizen of the world and to be of service. How do you balance that with hanging out on the deck, or, like, how have you done that the last, since leaving home, like,
Well, if you ask my husband, he would say that I'm not balancing it well, that I say yes to too many things.
okay. Yeah.
But maybe that means that he helps balance me. He helps remind me that I need to be there for myself in order to be there for other people.
Mm-hmm.
And I have other people in my life who remind me of that as well.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, giving myself permission to say no.
Yeah.
That's an ongoing challenge, but something that I try to remind myself of. And recognizing when is it that I have the energy, like, just because I may not have the energy to do something one moment doesn't mean that the next moment it comes up that I won't, I might have the energy then.
Mm-hmm.
And embracing it when I do have the energy, and recognizing when I don't, and that I need to the times that I need to step back and let someone else be that voice for a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't always do it well, but I'm trying.
Yeah. That's such a journey, right? It's like,
Yeah.
of figuring that out. So he's kind of serves as a balancing presence.
I think he tries. Yeah. And most of the time it works.
Yeah. Yeah.
But sometimes, I mean, it can be hard when you feel really passionate about something. It can be hard to say, no, I'm not going to show up for that.
Yeah.
And so sometimes it's hard to be told, I think this is something that you need to let someone else
Mm-hmm.
lean into.
Mm-hmm.
But you need those voices in your life sometimes.
I think so, right? I think so. I think if it weren't for Sarah, I'd probably be working 87 hours a week and still not feeling like I'm doing enough.
Yeah. Yeah. I get that.
Right.
Totally.
I don't know.
I'm a helper. Like, I don't know if you've ever done the Enneagram. I'm not an Enneagram expert, but I'm a 2.
I'm a 2 also.
No wonder we get along.
Exactly.
So yeah, it's like I have this desire to be helpful. I have this desire to be valuable and to do what I can, and that's just a natural part of who I am. And so it can, even though it's not selfish, it can feel selfish to me. Like I can make myself feel like that by saying no, I'm doing something wrong.
Right.
We need those other people. We need those other people who aren't Enneagram 2s to tell us, no, it's okay for you to say no.
Totally.
Every now and then. So.
Totally. Yeah. Oh, big empathy. Big empathy. Big empathy for what you're sharing. Yeah, it is a journey to be like, I was thinking last week, my buddy from New York texted me and was like, hey, want to have a chat this week? And I'm like, heck no. I'm like, I can't even make time for my own brain right now. I was feeling so overwhelmed last week.
Yeah.
And so I just didn't even write him back. And I was like, I got this morning, I'm like, I haven't even written him back. What is my deal? Like, but I'm like, no, clearly you're trying to be on the earth.
Yeah.
Trying to come back to the earth a little bit before then you want to show up for that friendship. So
yeah. And the weird part about this pandemic, I think, is that we're all going through something similar. It may manifest slightly differently, but we're all having, I think, similar feelings, but not necessarily at the same time. And so, like when I'm needing connection, maybe the people that I need that connection from are like, no, I can't even answer this text right now.
Yeah.
And then trying to like navigate that both internally and as a part of a relationship or a friendship. That's been challenging too. Like how do I not overthink this or overreact or overanalyze this, but at the same time reach out for what I am needing, but also caring for others with what they need. I mean, it's just such a jumble.
Right. Like what's going on in their world.
Right.
It, like last week, it's like the people not texting you back, just know that they're probably in their little like.
But in the moment, it's hard to remember that sometimes.
It is. Yeah. I'm pretty sure like the week previous, I was annoyed somebody hadn't written me back yet. So it's like, okay. Yeah. So what, I have to stay with that Enneagram number 2. Like, again, those of you checking this out, hey, Enneagram, it's worth checking out. In my opinion, I would 100% recommend it. Sarah and I didn't know if, 14 months ago, if we'd still be together, and we did the Enneagram, we started going to therapy, and like, I feel like we're seeing each other way better now, and our relationship is in such a better place. So anyway, I will throw that out there. It just really helped us kind of understand how we uniquely show up.
Yeah.
I think I was wanting her to show up like a 2, and she was wanting me to show up like a 7. And I'm like, I'm a 2, I'm not a 7, And again, some of you might be like, oh, I don't like personality tests because they box me in. I still don't feel like I don't feel boxed in. I feel like this gives some good tidbits, some good wisdom.
Yeah. They're not supposed to be used as a crutch. They're supposed to be used as a resource.
Totally. And just to pay attention, right? Where it's like, oh yeah, I did that because I was trying to people please and not to actually love them, or, like having to sort through that.
Yeah. That's the flip side of the 2, right? Like it starts from a good place of wanting to be helpful and caring and compassionate, but under stress and duress, it can manifest in much different ways.
Totally. Well, how do you deal with, as a number 2, how do you deal with just the onslaught of media, of both social media and also just the media in general, and all the shows and the news organizations coming at you? I think that, 20 years ago, we would go to a church conference and be kind of like, get some downloads from some pastors about what's going on around the world, how we could, do a fundraiser to plant trees or whatever, like we would learn some things going on around the world. But now what's going on around the world is like, whoop, we're getting notifications. How do you process that?
Well, let me answer that more from as a marketer than as an Enneagram 2.
Yeah.
And as a marketer, so there are a lot of benefits to being this connected to each other, because we are able to get, hopefully, a more well-rounded picture. We're able to, as individuals, to empower ourselves to do our own research and to find the things that we need, whether it's information or products and services. And as a marketer myself, I want to be able to help people meet their needs in whatever way is best for them right now in their journey. The flip side of it, though, is the greedy part of media and marketing, and maybe some ill-intended tactics on the part of some who are in the marketing and sales world, to just want to make a buck off someone. And that's where, products get pushed that you don't actually need, and where, inaccurate information is shared to push out one person's agenda. And so there's a just like our personalities, it has the good sides and the not so good sides. There's a good side and a not so good side to all the media consumption that we have as well. So, and so that's something that I think we as individuals need to navigate really carefully, but also those of us in the marketing and communications world need to navigate really carefully. We need to think about what our values are in relation to the work that we do. I don't think that they can be mutually exclusive.
Yeah. Yeah, got it. So when you think about you personally, how much are you dialing in to like so yeah, I hear you saying, so the marketing world, it's part of how we communicate. It's allowing people to find needs or find services and products for their needs. And it's, there's a lot of benefit in how connected the globe has become.
Yeah.
But then there's also some like zones where it's like, okay, companies and organizations have to figure out, okay, when is too much.
Right. And I think individuals need to think of that for themselves too. So, like we can make a conscious choice as to what media we take in and what sources we go to for our news and for our information and what we share out into the world. I think that's something that we as individuals need to take ownership of as well, and to understand all the different nuances about our media consumption and what is behind all of that. I think is important too.
Totally. What's yeah, okay. Appreciate this dive in. As we're thinking about the world today, like how are we, I think for me, the challenge, and I'm curious your own, as you've said, number 2 in the Anabaptist background, and like just this pull to like, I watch a documentary on dolphins, I cry. And I'm like, oh, I need to go save the dolphins. I watch a documentary on the social dilemma, right? I watch the social dilemma.
Oh yeah, that's a good one.
I'm like, oh my goodness. You watch these different, or I get on the news and I see like what's going on over in another country, and I'm like frazzled and overwhelmed. How do you deal with, how do you stay in your lane? I guess that would be my, how do you do your best to stay in your lane? Because what you're doing, the service, you at Everence and you and the Everence community are offering is a very important service. How do you stay in that lane, and then are specific with how you spend your other hours, like where it's versus feeling overwhelmed? Because there's tons of world needs that I think are out there. The earth is talking to us daily,
Right.
How do you?
Well, I think, so first on the organizational level, I think it's important to remember when you're making decisions about whether or not are you going to go in this direction with your products and services, or are you going to issue a statement about this, or are you going to speak into this, is how does that fit with your mission as an organization? I think your mission should be a key way to understand whether or not you're staying in your lane. And I think that applies individually as well. I'm not saying that every person needs to have their own mission statement, although there are plenty of people who do. But having an understanding of who you are and what's important to you can help you then figure out where do I want to put my energy, my time, my talent, my resources. And then on top of that is like, what is your capacity to do that? So there might be someone who has all the money possible and can go and actually, physically save dolphins themselves. And that's great, but that may not be where you're at, Aaron. And maybe what you can do is share information to your network about what's happening in our oceans and
Yeah.
how it's harming dolphins, you know?
Yeah.
And maybe that's your part of the work.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I hear you saying like each of us as individuals and as organizations, but as individuals, even having like that missions statement, huge, right? Because then you're able to be like, all right, so if this is how I want to show up, okay,
Yeah.
and here are my key zones that I would like to continue to educate people about in
Yeah.
in my network or whatever.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. Or maybe what the next step is just to learn more. Like maybe that's how you show up, is to say, you know what? I recognize that this is an area that I don't know much about.
mm-hmm,
So I'm going to make a commitment to learn more about it.
mm-hmm,
Maybe that's how you show up.
mm-hmm. Totally. That can be step one, and
Yeah.
then figuring out, okay, from there, if it's something that's like, okay, still polling, still still
Right.
like, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I think so tell me about how you got into the work at Everence and like
Huh.
because I think that my brother and dad are in financial advising
Yeah.
and stuff, and
Well,
yeah.
I think when I was at Manchester, if someone had told me that I would be an executive at a financial services organization, I would have laughed at them and said, no way.
Uh-huh. Real talk. Yeah.
Yeah, real talk. Like
Uh-huh.
finances, money, that was not my strong suit.
Yeah.
But I think, so like you mentioned earlier, I was at Church World Service for before I came here to Everence, and that's an organization that was very close to my heart. My dad worked for them for over 40 years, and so I was kind of a CWS kid.
Yep.
But I was ready for a change, ready to branch out, and Everence was actually known as Mennonite Mutual Aid back then, or MMA.
Okay.
And for those who may not be familiar, the Mennonite faith tradition is very similar to the Church of the Brethren faith tradition that we grew up in.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, this doesn't need to be a big commercial for Everence, but
Yeah.
we're technically a nonprofit. So I feel like my work here really is to help people, is to help people on their financial stewardship journeys, to help people meet their needs and their goals so that they can be present and lean into the callings that they are feeling from their based on their faith and values, and meeting real needs. I mean, everyone is on a different part of their financial journey, and everyone has a different financial experience, and I really feel like this is an organization that's helping people, like walking alongside our members as they're walking on that journey. And so for me, it feels less like a big company that's trying to sell products and services, and more of a partnership and more of a relationship.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and providing such education to just make people aware of like what is possible and how to, like you said, stewardship, right? How to become good stewards of that which we earn, and it's like so important. I'm I have a lot of dialogues with my brother. I think probably right, the Anabaptist upbringing.
Mm-hmm.
I remember when I was 22, right after leaving Manchester, and my brother was talking about his 401k, and I was like, I'm like, give him the thumbs up. I'm like, 401k, okay, that I'm not. Anyway, it didn't vibe with me. I was like, I don't know. I was just like a little hippie child. I was reading a bunch of books on living in the present moment and like why are we so intentional about saving, and at a job, he wasn't working a job that he really enjoyed at the time. So I was like, long story short, I have a lot of dialogues with my brother just about finances and money, and like how do we show up. I'm reading a book on scarcity right now, and how to because I have time scarcity issues, and I have like financial scarcity issues that I'm still releasing. where it's like, they block me, really. They honestly, like, it blocks me from growing my family, our business, like Sarah and I's business. It blocks me. And I think that this education that you all are providing, like that you're providing, is helping people like me, like, not get overwhelmed by it. Right. It's like,
Right.
that's the hope. Right.
Right. Yeah. I mean, financial decisions are hard and they're complicated and they're confusing, and it's constantly changing, either because of our life stage or because of the economy. And yeah, it can be really overwhelming to think about what you might need financially when you're 85, when you're still 22, So, so just helping people navigate that, and not just so they can become wealthy and have the easy life, but
Right.
what is it that's important to them? And how can we help them get there?
Totally.
And if that means saving as much as you can so that you feel a sense of security in the future, okay, let's talk about that. Or if it's someone who's like, I don't want my investments to go to this or this, let's talk about that. And see how we can, incorporate that into your planning and your decision making. Or even if it's just, I can't, even if it's someone who's like, I don't have an emergency fund, I don't know how to even like get there because I don't have that kind of money just sitting around, but having that conversation and helping it feel less overwhelming.
Totally. Like, what if somebody were listening and they're kind of feel like a little bit of at a loss and just in a challenging space financially, like, what are there any just words you might offer them? Just like it's like baby steps, like would there be some baby steps that you would suggest somebody who, just,
well, I mean, it really depends on their personal situation.
Totally.
And I mean, if your brother is watching, I'm not licensed, so I shouldn't. But let's start where you're at. I mean, you don't have to have it all figured out. Just start where you're at and find someone, whether it's a financial advisor or a consultant, or whether it's, a sibling, like you talking to your brother, or, someone in your community or your network that you trust, that you think can, has something to offer to help you think through it. Just asking the question and starting small.
Yeah. Love that.
You don't have to figure it out on your own.
Love that. I do think that, like, money, right? It's been something that so many of us were taught to, like, don't talk about.
Right. It's such a taboo subject.
Yeah. And yet, if we don't talk about it, we don't ever find these solutions and these answers from people who actually could help us,
Right. Yeah.
So I love that. I love that suggestion, to find somebody you trust, whether they're all in on, just you see them as a good steward, you see them as somebody who takes great care of their money, gives generously, takes care of their family and saves also, or whatever, just be brave and ask some questions and have a convo. Yeah. It's got to start somewhere, right?
Right. And even if they don't have the answers for you, they might know someone who does.
Totally.
Who can help you. Totally. You just never know until you ask.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah, no, I think that's, I'm grateful for the work y'all are doing, and I'm sure it's, I mean, obviously you're still working there, so it continues to give you life, it still continues to give you life and excites you to help people. Right. I mean, I think that, like it or not, I've kind of, in the last 6 years of growing a entrepreneurial business, like, I've had to embrace, like, okay, what I offer, what I can share, how I can teach, this is important, like, and it's okay for me to, whether it was when I was giving massages back in the day and, like, earning money from that, and just, like, learning how to value myself enough. I think that, I think a lot of us are just on this journey of sorting through our relationship with money.
Yeah.
And just, like, and
whether we want to acknowledge it or not.
Yeah, we either like hate it, avoid it, are afraid of it, anxious about it, like,
Yeah.
and if we could do some healing and, and have those conversations with somebody, I think that then we can start, I don't know, maybe then we, find work
Yeah.
that vibes more with our soul, that vibes more with what, what
Exactly.
our mission is.
Yeah. Yeah. Remove it as a barrier so that you can actually fulfill what you feel called or pulled to do.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Oh my goodness. Money is definitely a journey. What do you, I have a question. I have a question because I've listened to a guy on and off. He's an entrepreneur. And one of the things he says is good people having good money is actually a really good thing. Do you have any thoughts on that? I would just be like, like good people having good money is a really good thing for the world, because
Yeah.
if they are good stewards, right, they will be a part of making good shifts and changes.
Yeah.
I don't know what. Yeah.
Yeah. In concept, I would agree with that.
Yeah.
Um, I think how that's put into practice can
Yeah.
be interpreted differently for people. And I'm not placing a judgment on any of that.
Yeah.
But there would be some in the camp of earn as much money as you can now so that you can do good later.
Okay.
And nothing wrong with that. There's value in that, right? Like, especially if you're able to amass enough to make a huge difference.
Mm-hmm.
I get that. I get the appeal of that.
Mm-hmm.
There would be others though who would say, but what kind of decisions are you making with your money now that that don't align with your values? Is that a sacrifice you're willing to make
Mm-hmm.
in order to amass as much as you can? So
Mm-hmm.
everyone draws that line in the sand at a different place, and it's not my place to necessarily judge that or place a value on that.
Yeah.
But I think if people are at least willing to have that conversation about what does it mean to them to be a good steward, not only of their financial resources but of their community, local or global.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean that's the important first step is to have that conversation, whether that's an internal conversation or one that you have with a trusted advisor or your family members, but to at least consider it.
Mm-hmm. Totally. Well, I think as we're talking about it, I'm thinking like, I've thought that, and I don't know if it was Andrew Yang who kind of shared it first, or if it was, it's been a dialogue for a while, but an idea of like a universal basic income that kind of, really allows people to not be on the struggle bus in the ways in which so many people are. And I was always saying like, I like the idea of that personally. Again, those listeners, if that doesn't vibe with you, big respect. I just personally resonate with this idea. And, but I also think that it would be great if Everence and, like other organizations like what you guys do would create some sort of educational material where it's like, in order for me to access my that universal
Yeah.
basic income, I need to learn some tools.
Yeah.
Because otherwise that money is gone in about 7 minutes on Amazon right now,
Yeah.
So to have some guidance, I'm like,
we do.
yeah.
And again, this doesn't need to be an Everence commercial. That wasn't why you asked me to be on this episode. But yeah, like we have resources like that. Other organizations have resources like that. Mm-hmm. I'm sure your brother and your dad have resources like that. Mm-hmm. But again, you're not going to know unless, to bring it full circle, unless either you go looking or responsible marketers mm-hmm. Can get that message in front of you at the right time that you need it.
Totally.
And so that's bringing it back around to that initial question about consumption.
Totally.
Because a lot of times we don't even know how to vocalize the questions or the internal tensions that we have within ourselves, right? We just know there's something there, mm-hmm. but we don't know what it really is that we need to be looking at or asking about. And mm-hmm. that's where being a more connected world can help us because we have more access to the information that we may not even be able to vocalize that we need.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a flip side to it.
Mm-hmm. Totally. Totally. Yeah. Such a need. That education is so needed, right? I mean, I think, when I hear about, professional athletes that, within 3 years of retiring don't have a dollar to their name again, and you're just like, oh man, the education was missing. It's like, boy, if we could continue to raise the bar on education, I think even in growing up, just like, I wish there was more of my brother goes in and teaches, like goes into like different high school math classrooms and we'll do like a little workshop just to teach about compounding interest and different other pieces, and it's like, hallelujah, we need more of that.
Totally do.
If we're going to continue on down this path and the current, way of doing money and buying and selling and all the things,
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. And then the responsible marketing piece, I mean, it takes me to that social dilemma, right? Where it's like, boy, it is an interesting time. It's an interesting time. And I do pray, I don't know where you're at on it, but after watching that, I definitely pray that there would be more choice for those of us who are consuming, right? Where it's like
choice and more transparency.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because, for those who have seen the social dilemma, there a lot of the data and analytics that have been built and metrics that have been built behind the scenes were not intended to be, selfish in nature. It's just, that's one of the directions that some in society have taken it towards. And so, yeah, it's complicated stuff. It's confusing stuff. And it's easy to just say, I don't need to know what that is or how it's being used. But I mean, anymore these days, we need to know, even if it doesn't change our behavior, but to at least be aware.
Totally. Thank you for dropping in on that world, the Everence and the financial. I was curious because it's, like you said, like in college, it's like in college, if somebody ever said like, oh, you're going to be an entrepreneur someday, growing a business and helping other people grow businesses, I would have been like, no, no, actually, no, so yeah, I mean, but because for me, it also is this abundance journey, right? For the business journey I'm on is about helping other business leaders learn the skills and tools to grow their businesses. And in doing so, we're all growing more successful. And it's like, which then, in my brain allows me to continue to give abundantly and give in the ways I choose and in the zones that I really feel passionate about.
Right.
But what's funny, and I'm not sure if any of my family actually listens to all the podcasts and YouTube, but my grandma was concerned when I shifted professions from teaching high school into this like entrepreneurial.
Your grandma Layman?
Yeah.
Yeah, she's sweet.
I love her. I mean, she's so good. But she was a little concerned that I was. I
can hear her too. I can hear her having a conversation with you.
Yeah. She was a little concerned about my intentions and what my, this, money, desire to create wealth or whatever. And I was like, I said, Grandma, I said, you know me. I said, I could go live in India, very fun, and live in a hut and volunteer the rest of my life and feel good about that. I was like, I taught high school and I saw a lot of grumpy folks showing up to work every day. And I didn't like it. I didn't like the fact that, people on Monday and Tuesday were like, weekend's gone, and I'm not saying it was 80% of the teachers were in the grump space, but it was a large number. And again, I don't know their journeys and what all was going on in their world. But as a young dude, I was like 20, 28 or whatever, I'm like, this is depressing. What are we modeling for the next generation, And so for me, it was about possibility and opportunity and pursuing something that I was passionate about, and inviting other people into that. So anyway, just that journey of like, it was good to have that challenge and that question, and it is still a good challenge
Mm-hmm.
as I continue to grow our business. But I think that'll be for a forever conversation, right?
Oh, I'm sure. I'm
As
sure.
you're Anabaptist, like that
Yeah.
Church of the Brethren upbringing, where it's like,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah. Well, and I think, so in the Church of the Brethren upbringing, especially the Anglo history of the Church of the Brethren, that idea of simple living, and what does that mean? And I think that has changed as our contexts have changed. And it also doesn't mean the same thing for, historically Anglo-European individuals as it does for people of color and those who are living on the margins. And yeah, so what does that mean, and how does it resonate? And not only what does it mean for the faith community, but for us as individuals as well, and figuring that out for ourselves.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, having that dialogue with self and with others, right? And with others, of figuring out like, okay, this, I feel grounded. I do feel like the work I'm doing is important, and abundance is on its way, and that's okay, because I choose to be a good steward of this. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. What, I want to honor time and all, as you're 40-ish, what what you're like early 40s. Right?
I am.
You're my sister's age. What, as you think about, like, if, a group of 20,000 were hanging out in a room, and they had come to this weekend retreat that you were a part of. You were one of the presenters at at this retreat. And they came to just like get wisdom downloads just all weekend. They were like hungry.
They came to hear me? I mean,
yes. Yes. Hungry to make shifts, hungry for, a shift in their world, in their worldview, hungry for, just hungry for change, hungry for transformation. What might you offer them? What is, obviously, like, your upbringing has been super influential on who you are today. But, what might you point people to? Is there a book that you would point people to? Is there like something that's been important to you? What would you offer to them as they kind of go back home, right? They're listening in, and they're going to go back home and have to chew on all this material that they've had all weekend. What would you want them to know?
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a really good question. I would probably start with stay curious. And I know that might sound cliche, but we always have more that we can learn. Even if you are thought of as, a topic expert or a subject matter expert, there's still more for us to learn, because not all of us have the same experiences and the same stories.
Mm-hmm.
So I think being aware of that, and how easy it can be to, without even realizing it, stay stuck in our own perception and our own story, can actually be a hindrance to us as much as it can be helpful, because we bring something unique. So that's the next thing I would say, is we all bring our own unique worldview and our own unique perspectives, and that's important. Your worldview, your perspective, your voice matters.
Mm-hmm.
But don't forget that other voices also matter, and learning from each other is important.
Mm-hmm.
That's probably what I would say.
Yeah. 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 I mean, that's beautiful.
Thanks.
I mean, yes. Especially right now, right? I mean, I think those are two huge pieces. And I mean, the stay curious piece, like, if we don't, right? I mean, if we, like, we must.
Yeah.
We must, for the sake of humanity and for the sake of the earth, it's like
Right. Right.
that. I mean, and not that that's easy.
Right. It's not.
Not
These
at
are hard
all.
things.
Those are hard things, but to stay curious. Yeah. Huge. What are yeah, I love that. So stay curious and also bring your voice and your
Yeah.
worldview and your stories. Cause those are also important.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah. Well, I'm really grateful for you joining me today.
Well, thanks
And
for inviting
yeah,
me.
I'm really
It's been
thankful.
fun.
Yeah. And just, yeah, I'm excited to continue to get to know you, in the coming years. And yeah, just grateful for your voice. And, as I think about where we're headed, you're a model of a woman with mission, with a passion to help make the world a better place. And I feel that, I see that, through your social media influence and everything. And it's like, don't stop. Don't
Thanks.
stop. We those of us who are in your circles, and we need to continue to learn and grow alongside you and learn from you. So appreciate your perspective always. And
Thanks, Aaron. I appreciate it, and
yeah.
I'm glad that you're doing this podcast. I think that the more that we can focus on how we can help each other heal and grow is so much more important than focusing on what divides us. Even though we need to know what divides us so that we can heal.
Right.
But this is a valuable and important space too. So thank you for making space for that.
Yeah, you're welcome. Those of you who joined for the first time on YouTube or on podcast, welcome. Thanks for hanging out. And yeah, Madalyn, once again, big gratitude. And yeah, much love to you and your husband. Have a beautiful week and a beautiful rest of your day.
Same to you and Sarah.
All right. Thank you.